Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today on Masechtas Gittin Daf Samaches. We are going to begin on Samaches Samad Aleph, about 14 lines from the top, with the pasuk in Koheles from Shlomo HaMelech. Lasisili Sharim, the Sharais, that I made various songs, and this pasuk will be interpreted by each piece. The Tanugais b'nei Adam, and the delights of people, Shida v'Shidais. So what does this mean? So Sharim v'Sharais el mini zemer. This is referring to various songs. V'sa nugais b'nei Adam elu berechais o merchatzos. This is referring to various pools, bathhouses. Shida v'Shidos hachat hargim sheda v'shedtin. This is actually referring to shadim, demons, that he had some type of dominion over shadim or a particular shade. So the difference between sheda and shedtin, Rashi says a little diktik here, shed zachar v'shed nekeva. B'marava amri, in Eretz Yisrael they said it's referring to shidta. Shida agula, Rashi says. Lamarkeves nashim v'sharim. So referring to a carriage which would carry people. Amar Rabbi Yochanan shalosh meos mini shedim hayu b'shichen. There was actually 300 species of shadim that were in Beishichen, which is a place. Rashi says ba'oisa makoim. V'shed atzma eni yodea mahi. But the shade itself, I don't know what it is. Says Rashi, ma demusa, ma tiva, what its appearance or what good, what's its purpose. V'yeshamim shade atzma roish kuan. There's the head of them. The iman eni yodea mahi. Okay. So Omer Mar Hacha Targimu Shade v'Shedtin. So he said that there are shadim. So Shade v'Shedtin L'mayi Boile. What is Shlomo dealing with shadim for? A shade is a negative demon. What is the significance of Shlomo, this great man, engaging with such things? The pasuk says, V'habayis behiv nasoi. When it came to the building of the Beis HaMikdash, Eben Shlema Masa Nivna, that had to be quarried out of whole stones, which V'gaimer basically means that you're not allowed to take a stone and cut it with any metal object. Because the Beis HaMikdash is supposed to be built not with things that can destroy or kill. So because of that, he had a little bit of an issue. How are you able to build the Beis HaMikdash? So what do you do? So Amrulei Mikashmira de Aisim Maishel Avni Ephod. That Moshe Rabbeinu actually was involved when he made the ephod for the Kohen Gadol, that also needed this special worm called the shamir. What is the significance of the shamir regarding the ephod? Rashi quotes the Gemara in Sota toward the end of the Masechta over there. Avadim halalu in kaisun lehen b'diyai. You didn't write the words on the ephod with ink. Shenemer petuchi chotam. They're supposed to be engraved. However, in Masartin lehen be'izmel, you can't use a knife. Shenemer miblu asam shulha yichasaros klum. They cannot be missing anything. El kaisun lehen b'diyai. What they did was they wrote in ink. Umar lehen shamir, and they put the shamir over that mibachutz from the outside. Behin nikbois me'alehen, and that's how it was able to create these holes, which means it still remained complete and it wasn't missing. But again, the ink alone isn't enough, because it had to be engraved from the outside, which is question 11. We actually have 4 questions on this daf. Ika shmir da'isa Moshe avni ephod. So madulo kaso avni ha'ephod b'diyai, because it has to be pituche chotam. And why can't you just use a knife? So it's because it says b'mulu asam. It cannot be missing anything. So amahu heiche ishtakach. So he said, okay, great. All we need to do is get our hands on a shamir. Where does that exist? So amalei, I see shade of a shadteen. Go and acquire the shadim, which is the whole reason why we brought this down, is that he acquired shadim. Then they're not going to just tell you this information. Bekavshinhu ahadadi. basically cause them yisurin, Rashi says, press them and pressure them. After the yadi, maybe they'll know, and they'll reveal it to you. So as the shade v'shaitin, kavshin hu ahadadi, he pressured them. So Amri, so the shadim said, Anan o yadina, we don't know. Dilma ashmadai malka de shadi yadai. However, there is a king of the shadim called Ashmadoi, and maybe Ashmadoi knows. Okay, so I need to get to the Shamir worm. But to get to the Shamir worm, where's Ashmadoi? That knows where the Shamir worm is. So Amrulay said, I'll tell you. Isa Batur Plan, there's this particular mountain, whatever the name is, Harponi, that Kiriole Beira, that he dug up a pit, Maya, and he fills it up with water. It's filled up with water. Bitinra, and he fills it up. He covers it up. Rashes with an evan, with a stone. V'chasme b'gush panke, and then he seals it up so that this way no one could get into his water. His water is absolutely pure, fresh water. V'chol yoyim asal k'rakia v'gomer mesifted rakia. This is actually question 12. So the shade, the king of the shadim, still learned in the yeshiva above. So you could be the biggest demon in the world, but you still have to learn Torah, right? So he went up to the Masifta Rakia and he learned Torah. And this is what he does. And afterwards he comes down to the earth, and he learns Torah on some particular yeshiva. I don't know what the name of the yeshiva is that he learns Torah in, but he learns. Sarle Begush Panke, and then afterwards he basically examines his hole, his seal, that no person touched it. Then he opens it up, and he drinks some water, and then he closes up and seals it. So this way there's no one that can contaminate this water. So Shadre Binyahu ben Yoyada. So Shlomo went to Binyahu ben Yoyada, and he gave him the mission to somehow be able to help capture this demon. So Yoivle Shilta, he gave him a shelshel, a chain, Dachak La Shem, that was engraved on it the Shem Hashem. We'll see the significance of that. The Iz Kata Dechakik La Shem, and also he had a ring which also had Hashem's name engraved. V'gave de Amra, he gave him amounts of wool. V'zike de Chamra, as well as a significant amount of wine. Also karabeira metatoi. So the first thing that Ben Yoda did, because somehow he was able to locate where this pit is, but obviously he couldn't open the seal because then Ashmadoi would know. So instead, he dug a pit on the bottom, and Vishafinhu Lamaya, and by putting it there, it caused all the water from underneath in this other pit to drain out. Visas Minhu Bigavid Amr. Then he clogged up the hole with this wool. It's almost like a bottle stop. So this way he got drained all the water out of Ashmadoi's pit, and then he clogged up that hole so if he would be able to, any more contents would go in that pit, it won't drain out anymore. The Karaber Eloi, then he dug a pit above. The Shavchinhu L'chamer, he filled up with wine, Utiminhu, and then he closed it up with earth. Now the idea was that now that wine is going to drain into Ashmadoi's empty pit. Solik Yosef Bi'ilana, so he was sitting in a tree. Kiyasa Sire Lagushpanko, and Ashmadoi eventually came again to examine his pit. He saw that it was still sealed from above. So Gale, he opened it up, Ashke Chamra, and he noticed instead of water, for some reason, it turned into wine. Omer Ksiv, the pasuk says, "Leitz hayayin," the scarf regarding wine, Hayim Sheichar, the whole shayget and anyone shaygabo lo yecham. Anyone who errs in it will not be wise. Znus v'yayin v'tirosh yikach leiv lo ishti. I'm not going to drink. However, kisache, but eventually he got very thirsty. Wasagile ishte rava v'gana. So because he got so thirsty, he basically had no choice. So he ended up drinking from it, got intoxicated, and then fell asleep. So now this was their chance to capture him. Nochis, so Ben Yoyada went down to capture him. Also, he came again from the tree. Shadabe shoishilta sasme. So he took his chains and basically closed him up from his neck so that he won't be able to get out. Ki'itar, when Ashmanoi woke up, Havika miparzel. He was able to obviously see that he was captured. Armalei Shem, and he was trying to break those chains. Armalei said, Shema demarach Allah. Shema demarach Allah. The name of your master is upon you, namely Hashem. On the chain was engraved Hashem's name. So therefore, you don't have the ability to be able to break those chains. So ki nakit le v'asa mata dikla chaf beishadya. So when he encountered him, he came to a date palm tree. So he rubbed himself upon it and was cast down. Matla beisa, when he got to his house, shadya mata gabi kuba, when he got to a hut, dahi armalta, of this almana that was living there. Nafka went out, as we continue to Samach Chesam and Beis, Ichanale, says Rashi, Limashech me'elav shel yachlif boy. Kafa l'kaim say, Mine, itbar le garma. So Rashi says, Kafa l'kaim te, that he went bent over with his height, with sad acher to the other side, v'stalch oivi kseifa ben abayis, omer hainu dechsev v'loshin raka tishkar garim. Then we see from here that again the shade kept bumping into all these different things. So the women asked him to move from her hut, and by doing so, the shade broke a bone. That's how he was tishbru garim. So it was v'loshin raka tishbar garim. So again, it says because of his height, he kept bumping into things, and it barbe garma, and a bone broke. Okay, Chaza Samya, he saw that which is blind. The Havika ta'i b'urcha, that this person was lost on the road. Askil urche, and he went to a guest. Chaza Rava, he saw this drunkard. The Havika ta'i b'urcha, that he was confused on the road. Askel orche. So he went to the road to this guest. Chaza ched vasa dahavi kamechadala. So he saw this kala that Rashi says ki midachila, that ra hachnasas kala shahayu marbin b'simcha ma'oid. He saw a great level of joy. So shama hu gavra dahavi kaimer luush kafa. He went and he saw this person who said to a shoemaker, Avidli masani l'shem shnei achach. He said, go and make me shoes l'shem shnei, like for 7 years. And that caused him to laugh. Chazahu kasama dahavi kasim achich. So here he also saw someone else who's involved in ksamim, which is I think like witchcraft, and also he laughed. Himatul hasam, once he got to this place, he didn't actually encounter Shlomo until 3 days. The first day says, right? Why should you have a king? Why should he have to go to him? mishtaya. Shakol leventa, he took a brick, oisiv achaverta, and he put it on top of another brick. Asu Amalei l'shlomo, he said to Shlomo, Amalahu hachi, Amalahu hadur ashkuya, that you should go and drink more. So this is an interesting thing, that sometimes the best way to cure a hangover is, I guess, to drink more. Because Ashmedai was drunk, and now he's got to drink more. So, Machar, the next day, Amalahu be'amaylo kaboili malka legabe. Why didn't the king come to me? Amalei anse mechla. So I was engulfed in eating. I was busy eating. Shakol levinta mechaverta, and he took again a brick from its friend. And Oisva and he put it on the ground. Also Amalei was Shlomo, so he went to Shlomo. Amalahu hachi amalahu nagidu mine mechla, that you're taking away mechla mine. Says Rashi, mishchu yedechem, you're stretching out your hands malachilu from eating ki'imat, except for a small amount. L'soif tlasa yomi, after 3 days ayol l'kameh. Eventually Shlomo came to him. Shakul kani, he took a reed, umashach arba garmide, which was the measurement of 4 garmidi, which is a pretty long measurement. V'shada kameh, and he threw it in front of him. Amalei michli, let's see. Ki mayas hahu gavra, when this person dies, namely when Shlomo dies, leisli bahadein alma eladalad garmidi. There'll be nothing for for garmidim, which means referring to his kever. So even though Shlomo is so great now, eventually when he dies, he'll be in the ground, and he'll just occupy for garmidi. Hashta kavashti l'kol yalma. Now he conquers the whole world. V'loi savos, and he's not satisfied adikavas nameladidi, until he's also satisfied conquering me. What's the whole idea over here that you have to conquer me? The truth is, says Shlomo to Ashmedai, I know that I conquered you and I captured you, but the reality is my interests are not with you. Rather I request my entire mission is not anything to do with you. I want to build the Beis HaMikdash. Shemira. And the only way I could do that is if I can come across this special worm. Armali said, so the Ashmedai said, well, you have the wrong guy. I was not given rishus to have control over this worm. Rather, there is another master, the one who controls the seas. That is the one who has control over this worm. V'yoyevli el l'tarnagola bra. And it was only given over to a bird which is bro, which is wild. That it's believed by its shavua. It made an oath, basically that's going to constantly protect this worm, that no one's going to get to it. So my avnalei. So mamtile lature delesbu yishuv. What this bird would do is it would go to a mountain which does not have any settlement, Mumanachla Ashina Datura, and it would go up to the peak, the top of this mountain, Mupakatura, and it cracked open this mountain, Mumankit Maisi, in other words, it would use this special worm on the mountain that would cause the mountain to crack, Umankit Maisi Bizrane Me'ilani, and basically they would take seeds and put them into this hole in the earth. Vishadi, and he would throw it, Hasam over there, but Havi Yishuv, and then it became something settled. In other words, he also was involved in a constructive act. They used this shamir in order to be able to not build a Beis HaMikdash, but to be able to create more vegetation and more places where people can live because they'll have vegetables and fruits available. Behind the metargaminan nagar tura. This is how it's explained, a mountain cleaver. Okay, so that is basically what this bird does, also known as a hoopoe bird, Hoopoe. Badku kino the tarnagola. So they investigated and found the nest of where this tarnagola bara, this hoopoe bird is. The Isle b'ni, and then they had children. V'chafua l'kini zugyasa. So his strategy was to cover his nest with glass. So this chivarti, which is very clear glass. So this way, it almost appears, looking through this glass, that you could actually see the birds, you can see the nest. And the problem is that because there's this piece of glass, the mother bird couldn't get to its young. Ki also, when this hoopoe bird came, boila male v'lomatzel, he wanted to be able to assist its young, but he couldn't. So also, asa shemira v'ois ve'eluye. So what the bird did is, you know what, I'll take this shemira bird for my own purposes, and I'll put it on the top of this glass, and by doing that, it'll break the glass, so I'll be able to get to my young, and that's how I'll be able to do that. So Rama Beikola, so the shliach screamed out a loud noise, as Rashi Shlucha Shel Shlomo Kola, Shadya Shakle. So because of the fear, the hoopoe bird dropped this worm from its beak for a moment, which gave them the opportunity to grab hold onto this worm. So now we are the ones who are in control of this worm. Azul chadak nafshei shivuase. So this tarnagol was so devastated that it had failed in its mission of guarding this worm that actually killed itself. Armulei ben Yahu. So ben Yahu said, "My taima, what is the reason for this? Ki chazite lahu samya." That when you saw this blind person, the havi katoi be'urcha, and he was struggling on the road, that a sikte l'urche, that you basically brought him to the road, to the proper path. So Amalei machrize alei barakia, because it appeared in the heavens that tzaddik gamerhu, that this person was a great tzaddik, uman di ovid le nicha nafshe, and one who does this nicha nafshe, it's good, zachal alma diasi, and you'll end up meriting the world to come. So if you're oisik in helping this person, so then you'll be zoich nolam haba. Umay taima ki chazisilahu rava, when you saw this drunkard, the katoi be'orcha, who was struggling on the road, sikte l'orcha, that you helped him. So Malay machrizel le barakia, it was announced the Rosh Gomerhu, that this guy was actually a Rosh Gomer. But Abdulay nicha navshe, do something nice, ki hecha de lechle alma. So this way he'll be able to basically have everything in Olam Hazeh, and which is what he wants. So my time ki chazizlahu chadvasa bochis. How come when you saw this chadvasa, this kala that was Rashi, the Gemara said the kimachadi, there everyone was so happy, law that bocha, you cried. Why would you cry? So Amalei boy meimas gavra begoy tlasin yoimin. Because I know that in 30 days that this person's going to, within the 30 days, that her husband's going to die. And she's going to have to wait for his brother, because they're going to be childless, and she's going to have to wait for 13 years in order to be able to have yibum. It says Rashi, ad shiyavish te saros, until this basic baby turns 13, the royal chalitza. I was crying because I saw that she's gonna have to wait for 13 years to get out of this relationship. My time at kishamti lahu gavra, shamate lahu gavra, yarmule lushkafa, avid le masani l'shev shnin, achichas. How come when it came to this person, that who he said to a shoemaker make me shoes for 7 years that you laughed. What is the whole deal with that? Shiva Yomi Lesley. That 7 days he doesn't have, says Rashi. Enu batuach l'chiyoi sheva shanim. Who has the belief and guarantee that you're going to live for even for 7 days? Shema l'machar yomos. Maybe you're going to die tomorrow. Masanu l'shev shni boy. You want shoes that are going to last 7 years? You may not even live for 7 days. You're worried about your shoes lasting for 7 years, which is an unbelievable pshat. Your shoes represent your monetary wealth, right? Represents your is materialistic. Something which is on the bottom of your body, which is the most gashmi. So when it comes to a person, some people, they accumulate so much wealth beyond what they're able even to enjoy in this world. My time kasama. How come when you saw this person who was engaged in this witchcraft, the sorcery that you laughed, that they were actually sitting on the treasury of the king, says Rashi, Tachtav, underneath them, Haya Oitzer Godel Zahav Kesev Tamoin. There was tons of gold and silver there. Liksaim Maidiika Tute. So when it came to them underneath, them engaged, what is it that is underneath them? So basically, they have this person who's engaged in witchcraft, and they think they know everything, and then all of a sudden, the truth is, they don't even know what's underneath them. Tarachi Gabe Ad Debani Lebeis HaMikdash. So Shlomo, as an insurance policy, decided to hold on to this shade for the amount of time the Beis HaMikdash was being built. Yom Echad Havi Koi L'Chudei. He was by himself, and he was wondering. The pasuk says, "Ksiv k'soafois re'im lo." So what do we learn about the loftiness? What is that? V'amrinin k'soafois. What are the lofty ones? El malchi hasharis. Re'im elu hashedim. So my revusaychu minan. Why are you better than us? Why are you better than people? What makes you greater than people? So Amalei, he said, it's a good question, but before we answer that, let's look at question 13 and 14. So he was, the Shamir was by this Dechufas, which is a Tarnagol Havar, which we call the hoopoe bird, Hoopoe again. And the second question is, who was Matzleach to take it? And the answer was, Ben Yehoyada. Hashem praises them when it says Kiswafois Re'im Lo. So why? So Amalek goes, you want to know how we're greater than you? Shakal Shilta Minoi, take the chains off of me. Vahavli Iskatach, and give me your ring. Va'achvilach Ribusai, and then I'll show you my greatness. So he was so tempted, he wanted to see why was Ashwadoi greater than a person. So he did that. Shakle l'shashiltamine, he took the chains off. And B'yoyble iskate, and he gave him his ring. Bale, and then immediately Ashwadoi, upon being freed, swallowed him up. Which in itself, how does this answer the question? So it's interesting, we're going to see. This is probably answering the question why a shade, as bad as he is greater than a person. Perhaps just on a simple level, he was able to trick Shlomo. He was able to trick him. Because Shlomo's curiosity was so great that he even did something which was dangerous for him by freeing him and then, of course, hurt him. So, Osve Lachad Gape, so he was dwelling that with regard to one wing was Beraki in the heavens, and the other one was on earth. That's how his great wingspan. Paske arba mea parsoi, and he threw Shlomo 400 parsoi. He shaita on that moment. Over Shlomo, he said, "Ma yisun adam b'chol amoloi shiamol tachas hashamash v'zeh hayachelki mikol amoli." So ma uvazeh this. So Rabbi Shmuel Chad Aimer makloi One says a stick. V'chad oimer gundoi. One says a cloak. Chaya makser al hapsachim. So because of this, what ended up happening? So the Ashmanoi ended up swallowing up, so to speak, or taking over the position of being the king, and Shlomo ended up becoming like a pauper, a beggar. And that's what was happening. He was literally knocking on doors. Anyone he reached, he would say, Ani Koheles, Hayisi Melech al Yisrael Yerushalayim. He used to say, I'm the king of Jerusalem. Can you imagine a pauper, at least apparently, he was saying that I am Koheles. He mocked the Gabi Sanhedrin. When he got to the great Sanhedrin, Amar Rabbanan Michti. Shaita b'chadamil saloi sarach. My high. Normally, a crazy person doesn't do this. But this guy, because he only says this one crazy statement. He keeps saying, I'm the king, I'm the king. Someone who's crazy, their mind is constantly racing and saying all these random thoughts. The fact that he's constantly saying the same thing, maybe there's some truth to it. So Amalei lebin Yaho. So they said to Ben Yada, Kaboylach, Malkal Gabe, Armalahu lo. So did the king come to you? He said, no. Shalchalahu Lamach Vasa, Kaasi Malkal Gabaychu. Did the king come to you? Shamachal in, yes. Kaasi came, Shalchalahu Bidkan Bikare. She said, we want you to be boidik this man's feet. Shalchalahu B'moika de Kasi B'katavalahu bin Yasa the Katavu Nami Lubasheva Ime. So basically, they were trying to be boidik him constantly to be able to see what the story was. However, because when it comes to Ashmadoi, a malach or a shade has 3 toes. It's not a regular foot. So that is one of the ways to make a distinction. So this way we'd be able to distinguish and be able to see who this person in fact was. That is the trick to be able to determine this. However, says Rashi, Lotzarach enu nidbak loimer davar echad shel shtos kol yom shezeh omer hayisem melech ve'enu omer davar shtos acheres. So that's the way. Again, normally a shaita says other things. Badku Bikari, we said to check his feet, Shiraglav shel shein daimos shel tarnagoyim, because they have the same feet as tarnagoyim. B'moiki kaasi enu ba lishkav yachef. He didn't even go to sleep barefoot. Ela be'an pilois. He wore like socks or boots. He never would take them off. And he did this on purpose because he was concerned that people would examine him. So Asul Shlomo, they brought him Shlomo back. The Havule Iskata, they gave him the ring, the Shoshilta, the Chakak Leishem, and the chain in which had Hashem's name on it. Ke'ayel Chazi, when he came, Shlomo saw, the Ashmadai saw Shlomo, and Parach, and he flew away. Nonetheless, Shlomo was still petrified of Ashmadai. He was always scared that this Malach would come back, and therefore he was haunted constantly. Which is why even when he went to bed, Shishim Giborim Sabavla, he had 60 strong people around him, Mi Gibor Yisrael. Kul Machuze Cherev, all them holding swords, Molumdi Mechama, they were knowledgeable in war, Ishcharbal Yerechai, they had swords by their thigh, Mipachad Balelois. He was petrified of the night. What was the problem of the night? He was afraid of Ashmadai coming back. Rabbi Shmuel, Chadam Melech v'Hedid, Chadam Melech v'Hedid Melech. Which, if we look in Rashi, Melech v'Hedid, Hayishlomo l'chazer shuvo malchusai. That some say that was it. Shlomo Melech never returned back to his malchus, and that was it. He became like a pauper, and that was the end of it. Or possibly that, as we sit over here, that Hitaka did go back to his malchus. Ad kan.